Hey, Bob Carr here with another episode of the Bob Carr Show. Returning to the studio today is Mr. Jim Pendleton, earth artist to all the people in the world. Jimmy, I got a question I've been meaning to ask you for years. I've known you for 30 years. How in the world do you start the design process with a client? How do you do that?
I'll tell you, when I first meet the client, they're usually looking to see if I'm somebody they can work with, or they like the off-the-cuff ideas. They're interviewing me almost on that initial appointment, although these days most everything is referral. I, on the other hand, am silently interviewing them to see how serious they are, what the scope of the project is. It runs the whole gambit. Sometimes I'll get to a job and they know exactly what they want, or they think they know exactly what they want. They just need some guidance getting there. I've had clients call me up and say, look, I don't care what you do. I really don't even care what it looks like. Just make it look nice when people pull up. They really don't care about the individual plants. And then you'll run into somebody that really understands plant textures and bloom schedule and things of that nature. And so I try to find all that out in the first 5 minutes.
Can you?
So I know
5 minutes?
Yeah, it doesn't take long. Used to take a long time. And so I try to figure out where they're at mentally right in the first few minutes. And, you get clients that think something costs $500 that really costs $10,000. And so I also try to talk a little bit about budget without getting into specifics. I don't want to scare anybody off, but on the other hand, I don't want to spend a lot of time, if they really have never had professional landscaping done before, and they have no idea of the costs involved. When it comes to the actual design, though, very often I'll ask them what they're interested in. They'll say, oh, well, I want a swimming pool out here, and I need some patio. And I'll say something like, well, what about shade? You got no trees here at all. Believe me, in August, it's nice to jump in the pool, but when you want to sit by the pool, it's nice to be able to jump in the pool and sit in the shade. And, do you barbecue? Maybe you're interested in a summer kitchen. If so, how far do you want to take it? You want a pizza oven? Do you have a lot of kids over? Then I'll generally design a conceptual plan, rough to scale, and I put together a menu of things that they can have.
So you're doing this in the first meeting?
Yeah, believe it or not. I try to glean as much information as I can so that when I do that very first conceptual drawing,
you captured what they wanted.
I've got everything in there.
I got you.
And a lot of times they're on the fence. Well, it depends about this, it depends about that. I don't have this much to spend. And I'll explain, you can do it in bite-sized pieces. If we want to know where you're going to end up, then we can do a little bit every year, but we can put in all the infrastructure needed
now,
so we don't have to tear anything up to put a gas line in later. And then when it comes to the actual design, which is what I love, been in love with for 50 years, is I look at a job and I know how 9 designers out of 10 would approach it. And then I try to be the 10th one. I try to approach it exactly the opposite of the way the herd would. In the beginning, not too good an idea. It took a little time to kind of work the kinks out of that. But as I got better at my craft, the designs began to be a little bit more distinctive, and we would work in things that people would never think about. As a salesperson, I always designed in things that could be cut out. Everybody, they're looking at this huge number. Oh my God, the pool's this much, patio's this much, the pergola's this much. Where can I save money? And I might have a little water feature, Well, we can save $5,000 and cut that out. We can, So I actually design things in that I like, that if they wanted to keep, it'd be great. But if they need that sort of mental boost of saying, okay, well, at least I cut it down to here, then I'll design things in that, aren't absolutely necessary to the integrity of the design.
Gotcha.
When I get back to them for that second appointment, there's a scale drawing It's got everything that we talked about in it. And I'll be within 10% one way or the other. I'll be pretty close. If there's something they absolutely know they want but they can't afford it right now, then we'll put the gas and the drain lines in, and, later on when they're ready to do phase 2, all of that type work is done. The real trick to designing a job that's going to be done over a period of years.
Folks, listen to this. Here's the goal.
The real trick is that when you finish phase 1, it looks done and beautiful. And then you come in next year or the year after and you do phase 2. And it's like, oh my God, how did I ever like it before? I mean, this is done and beautiful. Then you come in at phase 3, and you know what I mean? So each phase should appear to be completely done. And then when you come in and you do that next phase, it should be complementary. It shouldn't look like an adjunct. You know what I mean? So all that has to be figured into that original plan as well.
Gotcha. And not everybody can do that.
No, but it was a while getting there. I tell people I have a lot of experience, which really means I've just made every mistake you can make. So when it comes to designing these jobs and implementing them in phases, it is tricky. So I'm not sure if I answered your question.
I think you did in a lot of detail, but that's important because a lot of people don't know on their end either what to expect when you pull up. People ask me that all the time. What questions do I need to answer for Jim? I said, well, just be yourself and answer what you're trying to do.
When I answer the front door, they look around behind me and see where the real designer is.
Jim, I appreciate you coming into the studio today and sharing your wisdom.
Thanks for having me, Bob. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And this wraps up another episode of the Bob Carr Show. Stay tuned next week for another episode.